Hello and welcome to That British Homestead. My name's Nick and today I thought I'd show you what it's like harvesting in a super small area. Okay, before we get started, I'd just like you to remind you to subscribe if you like our videos, and let's just jump straight into it. So, as you can see here, I've got a ton of sweet corn. This sweet corn I planted out round about May after the first frost. This sweet corn is called Swift, so it grows super fast and a lot of it is already ripe. As you can see at the beginning, what I'm doing is pulling down the ear of the corn and putting my fingernail in it, and basically I want to check whether or not the sweet corn is ripe. So it was nice and ripe, so I'm going to go ahead and take the ones that are in the same sort of condition as the one that I tested. Not all of the sweet corn ripen at the same time, so you don't want to go through and pull them all at the same time. They were planted and sown, etc., all at the same time, but they do take a little variation because, you know, some of the places are a little bit darker, etc. Okay, so it's done really well this year, the sweet corn, compared to other crops, because it's been a little bit of a difficult year this year, but the sweet corn's done super well. I did do 36 sweet corns this year. I started off with 50, but because of different reasons, you know, there was different things that happened. Bailey ate most of them, and now we have 36. As you can see, we've done pretty decently with the old sweet corn front. Each one of these sweet corn plants has produced 2 sweet corns, which I think is dead impressive, and that means that we have even more of a harvest, which is super exciting. Now, beans, the other thing that I really double down on in this little vegetable patch in my back garden is beans. I've got bush bean varieties here and I've got some climbers as well. Now, if I were going to redo this, I would definitely go ahead and put my climbers up my sweet corn to save on a little bit of space. I think that'd be something that I'll do next year, but this has worked out really well. I am staggered how much space and how much harvest you get. I'm getting trays and trays of beans off. To be honest, just between me and you, I don't really know what to do with all these beans. I'm kind of just cutting them up into pieces and sticking them in the freezer for now. We're eating tons of beans. We've got sweet corn now. This is the first harvest of sweet corn, though. I am so excited. We have lamb steak for dinner tonight with sweet corn and beans, so that's really exciting for us, and probably some roasted cabbage. So what I'm going to be doing is going through and pulling all of the beans that are a decent size. Getting absolutely tons of snails this time of year, probably because it's been so wet recently. However, we don't put down any slug pellets for snails, so you will see me throwing them over my shoulder. Now, the reason I'm throwing them over my shoulder is because there are ducks on the other side of my fence, and ducks love slugs and snails and all things quite revolting. So I throw them over to them and they're more than happy to eat them. So it's a good way of maintaining the garden, and one of the main reasons why we don't actually use slug pellets, because I don't want to poison my lovely duckies who spend most of the day looking for slugs and snails within the garden. So what ultimately would be a really great thing this year, and I was thinking this whilst I was sorting out my garden, would be that I bring the ducks into the veggie patch once I have sort of cleared it. It's not always possible here in the UK because of a flockdown, which is where you have to keep your ducks from being able to interact with wild birds. So if that does happen, obviously it's not something we can do, and we've got to be super conscious of daylight hours during autumn because the foxes are out really late and the hours are really short. So bearing that in mind, obviously keep them safe is the first priority. I don't like taking them out even when it's dark, even if I'm going to stand next to them, because I'm not gonna lie to you guys, these ducks are, they have first names, last names and middle names. They're my daughter's absolute favourite thing to play with in the garden, apart from the little chicks. Of course they're very special too, so I don't want to risk them, but when I'm in the garden and they're like free ranging, I do go ahead and throw the snails to them if I see them, or any slugs or anything particularly revolting. They absolutely love it. So here I'm getting absolutely tons of beans. I've got 3 types of beans here. I've got yellow beans, I've got purple beans, and I've got green beans also. All are French varieties. So I just got a mixed variety from B&Q, I believe, and it was just like a trifecta of different types of climbing beans and bush beans. I do know that the purple bush beans here are called Purple Queen, and the yellow ones are called Sunshine. So it is quite nice to have them. The purple ones will go green once you've cooked them, but if you eat them raw, you'd be able to eat them purple. I'm not really that much of a fan of a raw bean, but you know, some people are. Each their own. But what I do with these bad boys is I just trim the ends off them and I cut them into about an inch long and I stick them in the freezer. I really like having fresh vegetables, well, fresh frozen vegetables from the garden all the way through the winter, so it makes me super happy. These haven't slowed down. We are getting, to be fair, I only harvest these about once a week, but I get an absolute ton of them once a week, and it's super convenient putting them in the freezer. And like I said, I'm going to have some for dinner tonight as well, and I just think what a absolute wonderful way of introducing, you know, new flavours and vitamins into your diet, then growing some fresh beans in your back garden. Now, as you can see in this picture, I do have a squash plant here. I did not plant this squash plant, so these beans are growing super well because they're actually growing on the bedding, well, of the substrate of my duck run. Ducks are cold composting and they produce a lot of manure. They produce a lot of mess, to be honest, because they spit their water. So most of the water that is in my duck coop ends up on the floor because they absolutely love filter feeding and they love playing and spitting the water at each other. So that means that their wood chip breaks down super fast. Like, I'm replacing their wood chip way quicker than if I had my chickens. My chickens don't really mess about with water or anything like that. It's just not in their nature. Whereas ducks are like toddlers left unattended with a water gun. You can imagine water everywhere. So it's great because you get tons and tons of stuff to put in. And so I have gone ahead and covered this little allotment patch, or this little garden patch, as to say, with some of my duck bedding, and that has made my beans absolutely boom. And also it has some of the squash seeds left over in it because I feed my ducks squash seeds every now and again to help with worming because it naturally worms them. Now, I'm not too bothered by it. I'm just going to let it grow and grow. I think it's a Buffy ball, but I'm not 100% sure what it is. So we'll see once it starts properly developing. And you never know. It's quite exciting to see what happens in the long run. And I love squash. And my squash has done really badly over the allotment. So I thought it'd be quite interesting to see what happens from that. Now, this is over the allotment. I thought it'd be really interesting to look at the comparison. Now, this is a much bigger area, obviously. I think it is 0.1 of an acre, which is very small if you think about it, but it is 2 full allotment plots, which is 20 poles. If you're going to ask me what a pole is, I have no idea, but I think it works out at 250 square yards, and I have 2 of those, so that's quite a fair area. Apparently 1 allotment is enough to feed a family of 4 for 1 year. I think 2 allotments is quite fair to feed a family for a year. We're a family of 3, but we eat a lot of vegetables, so that could be why there's a big difference. We eat probably about half our diet is vegetables. We do eat meat, but we don't eat that much meat. We do eat tons and tons and tons of vegetables though. So I think if you eat like a moderate amount of vegetables, then maybe you could go ahead and get 1 allotment, or maybe if you're a better gardener than I am definitely feeling that this year with our blight that is affecting our tomatoes. I'm going around here and just pulling the tomatoes. To be honest, I was absolutely staggered that I'm getting so many fresh tomatoes, even though half my plants are really struggling with blight. Now, when they get too affected, I am pulling them out, but do you know what? I've worked so hard. I've been nursing these plants since February, I just can't bring myself to kill them all. So I'm going to get as many plants as humanly possible, and I just need to get that tomato sauce. It is tomato sauce season, and I refuse not to have tomato sauce, because at the end of the day, we have been waiting all year to have them sweet, sweet tomatoes. Now, saying that, I have an absolute craving for tomatoes, so I'm going to have a tomato chopped salad with my dinner tonight. I did say to myself earlier, I was like, right, Nick, you can't have both fresh tomatoes or canning tomatoes. You need to choose. And I'm thinking I'll have both. So we'll see how far that gets. Hopefully I'll be able to get a few more jars of tomato sauce. I have already put away 8 this year, which is nothing to be snuffed at. And I have a few from last year as well. Some basil and roasted tomato, some curry, and some chili flavoured tomatoes. So I did learn that over the year that I do prefer them to be plain, and then I'll put the seasonings in, etc. But this time, you know, I like to put lots of vegetables in them, so I did do kale in there, but it does mean that you have to can it for that little bit longer. I think it was 90 minutes that I had to can it for, to make sure that I sterilise that kale. But it's a great way of getting kale into the diet of people that hate kale. So that'll be a nice surprise for them when they realise that it is completely, utterly blended up, and there's no way of saying, ha ha ha. So yeah, I know it's very naughty, but anyway, any of these tomatoes that have got blemishes on and had the start of blight, I did go ahead and give to my chickens, and they're going to absolutely love them. Remember that blight is a fungal disease that only can affect living things, so as soon as the tomatoes and are killed off, it will not stay in your soil, which makes me feel a lot happier. I'm hoping that next year we won't have as bad blight, but it does depend on the weather. Here, like, look at this. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm getting quite good at growing the old cauliflower, even if I do say so myself. I have absolutely tons and tons and tons of cucumber, but I'm only getting a few cucumbers still throughout the year, but they're enough to keep us in cucumbers. I shouldn't really complain, because really I have more cucumbers to do than I know what to do with. You know, I can't complain too much because I am cucumber blessed still. Last year I felt like I was so pressured to eat cucumbers I almost turned into one. But this year it's still good. I have some cucumbers. I've got some that I'm keeping for seeds, so it does slow down the production a little bit. Alright, well, thank you so much for watching. And if you do like our videos, please go ahead and subscribe. It means a lot to us when you come and watch our videos. Thank you so much.